All right, Brian, you ready?
I am.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We're super excited to have you here today. Here we have Zari, who you can see in the bottom left, Bryan Miller, who's the Senior Director of Business Operations at Bluewater, and then I'm Melanie. So Zari and I are both the co-founders of Spekit, a documentation and training solution, and today we'll be covering a few different things, including we'll start with a little bit of background on Spekit for those of you that are not as familiar with the story and really what our objective is, what our vision is for the company. Then we'll jump into a conversation with Bryan, who's going to tell us a little bit about how he went about implementing Spekit at Bluewater Learning and how it really helps him with his rollout of Service Cloud. Then we'll jump into a demo. We've had a number of exciting new features come out recently, so we'll show you some of our new features that are really geared towards enabling your teams with better access to knowledge and onboarding. And then we'll give you a sneak peek into the roadmap so that you can give us some feedback on some of the functionality that we have coming up here. And then thank you so much for joining, and to thank you for, spending this next hour with us. We have compiled a list of standard end user questions that a lot of our clients come up with, and we've spent quite a bit of time basically creating a manual so that you can get started with that documentation process, documenting some of those standard processes like how to create a report or how to create an opportunity. And so we'll be sending you this PDF by email so that you can log here at Spekit. But prior to that, I was managing
Oh no, Mel, I think, is anyone else having connection issues, Brian, by any chance?
I'm not. I noticed Melanie was having an issue there,
Okay.
so.
Can you all hear Mel by any chance? Hi, Mel. I think we lost you there for a second. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Inevitable. Ah, we're back.
Okay, so can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Can.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, hopefully that does not happen again. I'm so sorry about that. Is the screen still frozen? Are we good to go?
It's working. It seems to be working.
Good.
Great.
Yep, good for now.
Sorry about that. Obviously, you wouldn't have a webinar without the casual technical difficulty here. But I was saying is that, at that company, we've made a lot of good decisions, including investing in Salesforce as our source of truth within the company. And around that, we brought on consultants, we purchased apps from the App Exchange like Conga or GridBuddy to help us really drive adoption. And we built a number of custom applications as well internally where needed. But the reality was that things weren't exactly going as planned. We were really suffering from low adoption, which was leading to bad data because people weren't updating their stages. And that had a big ripple effect because our Salesforce implementation was heavily operations focused. And so when someone didn't update a stage, it didn't trigger that process downstream. And because I had my hands on a number of these different projects within the company, one of my responsibilities was trying to figure out, was this an issue that we were doing wrong or was it an issue with Salesforce? Now, what we discovered was that the core issue that we had was that we didn't have readily available documentation and we hadn't really invested in the training portion of adoption, right? We'd invested in a number of different tools like Conga to help automate some of the processes, but we haven't necessarily spent the time to teach people how to use those tools and to give them the information they needed. And as a result, people like myself or my peers were really the sources of truth within our company. Zari knows that very well on the product side. And the irony was that, we're living in an economy where information is more accessible now than ever, right? And everything is available instantaneously in our consumer lives. If you want a ride, you can order an Uber. If you're, looking for food, you can immediately order it. But in the workplace, things just always seemed so challenging when it came to accessing information and getting to the answer we needed. Looking through old emails, looking through folders and files. And that's when Zara and I started discussing internally, what if there was an easier answer to getting that information at work, right? Instantaneously, where, whatever application you were in, that answer was readily available. And that is how Spekit was born. So we are a knowledge management solution that was initially built around Salesforce in the CRM use case, but we have a number of other use cases that we'll be describing here shortly. But to give you a little bit more context, I mentioned that I invited Bryan Miller here. He's one of our customers with Bluewater Learning, which is a learning and talent development consulting firm, to speak a little bit about his experience. So thanks, Bryan, so much for joining. I'd love for you to speak a little bit about your role at Bluewater Learning and some of the responsibilities that you cover.
Sure. Thanks very much for having me, team. So my name is Bryan Miller, the Senior Director of Business Operations here at Bluewater. We are a professional services organization, and our focus is around learning and talent management. We partner with some of the top tier learning and talent platforms: Cornerstone On Demand, Saba, SumTotal, UltiPro, Ultimate Workforce Management are some of the ones we deal with. We're also a very heavy consumer of Salesforce. So we have Pardot, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and then all of the Financial Force products as well. We've built a very robust ERP on top of the Salesforce platform, trying to use out-of-the-box tools. Just like Melanie was saying, one of the main challenges that we have has been putting just-in-time information in the hands of our end users. So a lot of clients that we work with want training information, want development information, and then also want those just-in-time, on-the-job job aids. And so we took that information to heart, and that's sort of why we invested in the Spekit product. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how did you hear about Spekit? Had you heard about us before Dreamforce?
So this is a fun story, right? So we have partnerships with Edcast and WalkMe, who are sort of competitors with the Spekit product, but not directly. And so my admin and I, Andrew Gobin, were walking around at Dreamforce, thinking, just kind of chatting about, how do we really get this information into our users' hands, right? We can create online training, we can do instructor-led training, we can create job aids, which are arduous, and immediately when you put them out, they're immediately out of date. But Edcast and WalkMe were more expensive than we were really wanting, and didn't quite fit the need. So we're walking around, and this fine young man, Reese, says, "Hey, are you interested in knowledge management?" Andrew and I both said, "Sure are. How can we get some more information?" So we started talking, and immediately it clicked with us, right? So having both knowledge, getting the knowledge out of our heads into the hands of our end users, made complete and total sense. So then we got some more information, and we were like, yeah, that's the product right there. We want to define the words in our environment, right? What are the data points we're collecting? We want to define why we're collecting them, and then we want to define how we're collecting them. Well, I'm not here to self-respect it, but that's exactly what this product does, in a way that is super intuitive.
Feel free.
I could tell this story all day. It's super intuitive. It's easy to use. It's easy to deploy, and it's easy to help drive adoption, both on your platform, whatever that platform happens to be, and in the Spekit tool, right? Because there's a difference between training content and development content, and then just-in-time learning content, right? So training, we really want somebody to sit down and go through the end-to-end process. That's fine. In development training, we want somebody to take a portion of that end-to-end process and really learn that component, and build up their skill set, so they can move on to the next job, or they can broaden their skill set, whatever that is. They can develop that training. But in the day-to-day life of most end users, they just want to know what they need to know when they need to know it. hey, I don't remember what LTC means on this opportunity. I don't remember what that field means or why I'm supposed to fill it in. Spekit really gives that. So we'll go into our Service Cloud use case here in just a minute. And that was really our main concern at Dreamforce, because while we were at Dreamforce, that following Monday, we were rolling live with a Service Cloud implementation that had taken us about 4.5 months to get through. And we were only up to really a minimum viable product with that. The main challenge that was remaining was, how do we get the documentation out to the end users in a way that is consumable, that's effective, and that will last us, into the first quarter of 2019 until we can sort of refine that process a little bit more.
Well, thank you so much. That was, welcome to our sales team if you want to join. No, it was actually really fun. I'll always remember the call after Dreamforce, because I hadn't gotten a chance to speak with you, but Reese, who, just for context, was a marketing intern at the time. So he'd only been with the company for, about a month, but he was really excited about the conversation with you. I think he's a really good lead. He really enjoys, talking about the problem and has a really interesting use case. And so I remember when we set up the demo, you had all the right people in the room, because you knew that in order to roll out a solution like this, it didn't, your opinion wasn't the only one that mattered. You needed your end users, you needed your peers at the leadership level. And so getting everyone in the room and having a real conversation around, how do we better access knowledge within the company? How do we ensure that, when we bring someone on, they have the information they need to get up to speed was a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
Great. So speaking of, your Service Cloud, implementations, you had a number of other Salesforce products. Why was this one in particular a challenge for you?
So Service Cloud, for any that are on the call, Service Cloud is a relatively complex product. It sounds easy, right? Submit a ticket, service the ticket, comply with an SLA. So that's the double-edged sword of Salesforce, right? It can do anything, and it can do anything. So for us, the challenge was really coming off of Zendesk, trying to consolidate even further all of our operation onto the Salesforce platform. And that's really why Service Cloud was important for us, is so that we could track from the point a customer really had an issue or requested additional service, all the way through the delivery team, all the way through into our accounting process, and then all the way back around to that customer lifecycle management, right? So giving a very full picture without additional integrations. So it's just me and one other that manage our entire Salesforce ERP. So we need as much on system as we possibly can. And then again, because Service Cloud is a relatively complex product, we wanted to make sure that our service people, our agents, had the process documentation exactly when and where they needed it. And we had no earthly idea how we were going to do that. We have a standard process for creating job aids, but it takes 10 hours per process or per job aid, and then doesn't include really the field level definition or the whys and the wherefores on when you fill something out or when you don't fill something out, when you press it to the next stage. So that was a real challenge for us.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And so you mentioned that you guys had a process around your job aids. Were you able to, really translate those job aids to Spekit, or did you change a little bit the way that you do document by leveraging Spekit?
So it changed. The only thing really that changed was the speed of delivery, right? And so generally with a job aid, it's write out the steps, put in the screenshots, add in the video or GIF, whatever you need to do, and then deploy that out to the end users and give them some document management system to go reference that's outside of the thing where they're at. Well, now I've taken my users outside of the system of record, outside of the system of engagement, and I've caused yet another delay in their day, right? So for every delay we have in our course of work, that takes about 12 to 15 minutes out of our productivity. So the only thing that we changed was we did all those same steps inside the specs inside of Spekit, and we're able to deploy that more rapidly without causing that 12 to 15 minute delay to go find the information the end user needed.
Awesome, thanks. And then around Spekit, when you're first evaluating the solution, could you share, with everyone that's on the webinar, some of your main objectives and how you, plan to measure success of your rollout?
Sure. So the thing that we thought could help the most, and the thing that we were trying to do is how do how do we track access to the knowledge? How do I stop people from sending me an email or an instant message or driving by my desk and be like, hey, how do I do the thing again? This is the 15th time we've talked about this. So there's really no absorption of that information. So that was really something that we wanted to achieve in a way that was relevant and consumable for our end users. And that's where we immediately, again, saw the value of not only the data dictionary and the definition component, but that knowledge management. So I can get this information out of my head to more people more quickly, and Andrew can get information out of his head, and other people who know other processes in the business can get that information out of their heads, out to the entire organization. And I could offload some of that job aid creation component where I'm the only one who maybe knows the thing. I could offload that onto someone, and they could get that out. So that was immediately where we were like, oh, that is the thing. That's our main challenge, and speed, right? Because time is money, right? And the speed with which we were able to do that in something like an Edcast or a WalkMe, they're great products, but they still take that time to go end to end in the entire process. With Spekit, I can go, oh, you need this much of the process when it's this long. Cool. Here's that thing that you need right there, and deploy it. So that was good for us.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and for the record, he shared a lot of ideas with us on how to improve the product. So it's fun working with customers like that, because since then we've been able to really build out features that enhance that experience. And one of the features you brought up that I actually like a lot is the data expert one, which allows you to assign out knowledge to other folks. Because I know from my own experience, and I know Zari can relate to that on the product side, we weren't the only experts within the organization, but everyone just kind of assumed that we had the answer, right? And that they should come to us for the answer, which took a huge amount of time away from my productivity. And my main responsibility was building out Salesforce. So every minute that I spent, explaining or re-explaining something was a minute away from actually building out automation. So I really wanted a way to easily say, hey, this is the person, I'm delegating this, the VP of sales, the VP of customer success, the sales operations manager, you name it, to go out and build out that documentation, because ultimately they were the subject matter experts. I just happened to be the, default go-to person for a lot of that. So great, thanks. And then, so let's talk a little bit about the implementation. So, that's a question that we get, a lot, that's a topic that we get a lot of questions about, reasonably so, because, I can completely relate to rolling out a new software and all the different, factors you need to take into consideration. How quickly can you roll it out? What's the adoption going to be like? How soon is your time to value? So can you speak a little bit about the implementation process?
Sure, absolutely. So the product is super intuitive. Like I said, we were on the back of a 4.5-month Service Cloud implementation that was scheduled for, we crammed a 60-day implementation into 4.5 months. So that was pretty awesome. With Spekit, we got the demo, they enabled our trial, and in less than 18 minutes, I had over 400 objects loaded and tens of thousands of fields loaded into the product, and my first 4 or 5 specs and field definitions done. It was like ludicrously easy. It was so easy. Like, oh man, can every product I buy be like this? That would be great. And since then, every time I onboard
this to the team, because that's great. I love that one.
It's fun. It was phenomenally easy, phenomenally intuitive. Hey, here's where you manage data, the data dictionary. Here's where you manage your knowledge. Here's how you relate the two things together. And then it just appears inside my Salesforce environment automatically, which is great. And every time I've onboarded somebody since then, so yesterday I'm on a sales call with a salesperson, talking about a few different things. I'm like, oh, hey, go check the definition of that or the process. And he goes, what do you mean? On a sales call. I said, oh, shoot, I need to enable you real quick. Sent him the invite, clicked on the invite. He immediately was able to pull up the knowledge card that he needed and speak to the client's request while we were on a sales call.
That's music to Zari's ears. So Zari here is the person that's really focused on thinking through all the UX. So that entire flow from how we invite users to how we connect to Salesforce, how we eventually integrate with other applications as well as the UI. So how intuitive is it for, users to navigate the system? Because again, from our own experience, she's in product, I'm in operations, how easily our end users are going to be able to actually use the product is a huge, huge, huge piece of our evaluation when we're looking at other solutions. And it's come a long way. I mean, if you look at the original mocks in our own, internal Slack channels, we'll laugh sometimes sending out old mocks. We're like, what were we thinking, a year ago with this initial UI? But, the reality is you learn from customers like you that are like, wait, why is this button here? Or why is it labeled this? And eventually, modify over time. So glad to hear that. And lastly, we'll come up on the demo here soon, but and actually, I think you spoke a little bit about the documentation time, but can you speak a little bit about, what benefits you're excited about or other intangibles that you think can come out of knowledge management, and also what you're excited about, in terms of where you think the product could go, what you'd like to see out of the product going into 2019?
Absolutely. So really the benefit here is, like I said, is the speed to deployment. So I'll give one more story about sort of how this has really benefited our team. I was at a conference about a month ago, and between sessions, I got a couple of IMs about, hey, I don't understand what the contractor work order amendment process is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to fill it out. I said, okay, give me 20 minutes. I'm between sessions right now. Let me get you some information. So I sat down, I started to write an email, and I was like, oh, wait, hold on. Let me just put this out there for everyone. So in between conference sessions, in that 20-minute time span, I sat down, took the screenshots, marked them up, wrote the process, deployed it out to Spekit, and said, hey, here, go check this out now. And now that's one of our most highly referenced specs in the system. So that, I mean, I would have had to sit down and go in the documentation tool that we have before and mark it up and save it and put it out on Box. There's a whole thing, right? And so now I do this probably once or twice a week is, hey, what's the process for? Sit down, do my stuff, deploy it. Hey, here it is now. It just gets it out super, super fast. And some of the things that I'm really excited about in the product upcoming are just those little tweaks, right? The product is really good right now, but it's the little tweaks that you guys are looking for and looking at. Maybe the ability to do something with the pictures inside the spec, or let me just say, by the way, the best thing so far has been the X button, so I don't lose my documentation. That's by far the best thing. That was great. I was like, oh.
This is how you discover real-time feedback.
So, there was in like week 1 of October, if I clicked off a spec I was creating, my stuff would not be automatically saved. By week 2 of October, then there was an X. I had to actually X out of the work I was doing. So that's been really great. I am really excited to see sort of where your roadmap is going and what you guys are doing, and just the continued diligence and effort and perseverance you're putting into the product, just to make it better and better and better over time, and just to continue that ease of use, that quality of user experience, and the cleanliness of the UI. So you guys are doing a great job with that, and especially taking into consideration user feedback. So
thank you. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Now I want to get on just the challenges around adoption and getting people to use the product. So in terms of your rollout, how did you make any tweaks to your documentation? Like, how have you seen adoption from your end users? Because you mentioned earlier, oh, I was about to answer that email, and then I was like, wait, let me go in and write that spec. And that's actually a habit that I really encourage people, when they start adopting the solution, is if you want your end users to reference it as a source of truth, you need to think of it as a source of truth. Meaning, instead of answering that Slack, that Outlook email, you name it, actually go in and spend that extra minute documenting it in Spekit, so that then that spec is available to everyone. So can you speak a little bit about those habits and how, what you've done internally to get people using the solution?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I'll get a Skype with, hey, how do I amend the contractor work order again? I'll copy the link from the spec. I'm like, go here, it's right there. Or I'll go on the object in Salesforce. I'll pick a record. I'll open that object. I'll take a screenshot with the Spekit add-in open and go, see, it's right there. Just click the button. It's automatically related. Not really. I did the relationship, but like, it's right there. Just go reference it. Remember, this is in line for you. Anytime you see the Spekit flower, then you can grow a garden of your own use. So
we need
flower. That's so nice to hear.
Well, thanks. That's really great. That's something that, Zari and I are spending a little bit more time thinking through as well. How can we encourage adoption of the solution? How can we get people to start using it? So thinking through notifications and things like that. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that in our roadmap. So anyway, thank you so much, Bryan. This was super helpful. We love hearing from our customers. I see a few of you that are here on the webinar. Hopefully one day we'll get you guys to share your experience as well, especially because every use case is slightly different. But this is really helpful. And as I go into the demo, feel free to chime in as well and share, any tips and tricks that you have around, specifically the onboarding use case and what you think people should focus on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So going into the demo here, just for those of you that are less familiar with the solution, to recap the implementation process, the way it works is you currently connect Spekit, which is the knowledge management solution, to your Salesforce. And what that allows you to do is to sync all of your metadata. So you can pull in whatever fields or objects or pick list values that you'd like to document so that you don't need to document all those from scratch. And more importantly, so that as your Salesforce continues to change, as you build out new processes, your Spekit knowledge base can stay up to date. Then you go in and actually create the documentation. So you can do that from the application, you can do that from our various extensions, and that's where you can go in and actually, add more extended definitions to the field or object definitions, or you can create your own specs, which are essentially specification documents on any given process or topic in your organization. So internally, we've really adopted it as a source of truth. So we've documented our pricing, our various features and products, anything that we want our end users, our sales team, our marketing team to be able to access in a GIF and have that very consistent messaging around. And lastly, you can access it not just in Spekit, right, in the centralized application, but in Salesforce, anywhere else in your browser, or even in Outlook using our various integrations. So with that said, I'm gonna change here and go into sharing my screen. Just given the technical difficulties we have, please let me know if for whatever reason you can't see my screen. But Zari, can you let me know here? Is everything good?
I can see the screen, and just ping in the chat, everyone, if there's any issues like last time. It seems to be working totally fine on my end.
Okay, great. So just for those of you that didn't see here, so the way it works is using our Chrome extension, we allow you for your end users to add documentation to any object, field, or pick list value. And this happens automatically once that object or field is documented in Spekit. So you'll see here that there's certain fields that that don't have the little icon next to them, and that's simply because we didn't document them. So it'll only show up where you want it to show up for your users. So here, if we take a look at the opportunity, if we hover over, because it's an object, you have the ability to relate any given spec, so any given, wiki card or knowledge card, whatever you want to call it, to that particular object. So if we take a look at how to create an opportunity, for example, you can click in here and see exactly what your team's documented. So the definition, the business process, and any sort of step-by-step that you've given your users. You can also see who the expert is on that particular spec. So going back to what I was explaining earlier, sometimes I'm going to be the best person internally for our end users to reference, but in other cases, there might be the director of marketing or director of customer success that might be the better person to reference. So you can assign a different expert there, and that way your end users know who to speak to, but more importantly, they also have the ability to actually edit that content. So using Spekit, you have the ability to go in and edit that directly in context here. Now, you can also store this information for the future so that it shows up here in your start items. So using our Chrome extension, you also have the ability to search for any of this information. So here again, you can see any related specs to the opportunity because we're on that particular object. Or you can flip to the start items to see all of your favorites. And this is at the user level, right? So if you're a new user and you can't remember how to create a report, that might be a card that you store here. In my case, the question I get the most is, what is our data dictionary or what is our pricing? So I can quickly reference that for our conversations. I can also search here, the search bar at any point in time for, let's say, let's search for a report. and find any given number of results here. Now, something I want to point out is one of the initiatives that we did internally to help, our customers kind of get that initial documentation off the ground is to create out-of-the-box content. And this content, is really just to give you a leg up so that you don't need to build everything from scratch. So we've recorded some simple videos. We've done 2 different versions, both in Salesforce Classic and Lightning. And again, we're building this library over time as we get feedback from our customers around, hey, notice that you didn't have any content on Chatter. Can you please build out a few, specs on that? And the idea here is that, it's completely up to you. If you have a, relatively standard implementation of Salesforce when it comes to reports and you don't have a lot of, limitations around that, this might be all your users need. But if you need to, you can always edit it for your organization and then, use it as your own. So that, again, is completely up to you. Now, you also have the ability to create content right there. And I'm not sure how the screen sharing functionality works here, so let me know if you see this pop up here. But you have the ability to go in and create a spec directly from the Chrome extension here. Sorry, can they see the spec?
We see the spec.
Okay, fantastic. So you can go in here, and this is what Brian was explaining earlier. If someone asks you a question, instead of just responding to that Slack message or that email, you can actually go in and say, this is how to document in Spekit. You can easily add an image or video using an image URL, and then you can save this. This is the process, and create that card. And just like that, now anyone who ever goes to search for that card will find that readily available to them in their Chrome extension. Now, again, as we mentioned, you can document your objects. You can also document your fields and pick list values. So one of my favorites is actually documenting our pick list values so that our end users know exactly which option to pick, right? So I used to work in a real estate org where our project types, while it was a simple 4-letter word, there was actually drastic differences between the different options. So you can go in and add as much information as you'd like from a training and onboarding perspective, so that when your end user, comes out of that initial training, they have all that information they need to truly understand, not just the Salesforce process, but your business and your terminology to ensure that A, you get good data, but that B, they have, a fast onboarding experience and one where they feel empowered to help themselves when they get stuck. Are there any questions in the chat that I can answer, Zari? No?
Not
Okay.
so far, but feel free to ask any questions and chat, everyone.
And it also works in the setup screen for admins. It keys off, API names, and that really gives you the ability to document anything from Apex classes to your validation rules, anything that might be helpful for you to document. But because this, session is really focused on the knowledge management and onboarding session, I'm going to focus on that piece today. So using our Chrome extension, another exciting thing is you can actually go in and enable it on any URL. So the neat thing is when we're outside of Salesforce, by default here, when you open Spekit, it'll show you all of your startup terms. And this just shows you how easily it is to go in and access that information if you're on a sales call or if you get an email, that you don't know the answer to. But even better, you can actually go in and enable that by URL. And what that does is right now, this markup functionality that you saw in Salesforce, we only have it enabled in Salesforce. However, with this option, you have the ability to turn it on any web application. So that here, if we're looking at this email, for example, it will automatically tell you that that particular keyword is documented in Spekit and that there is a definition that can help you. And again, this might not be a feature that you have permanently enabled, but especially for those first few weeks when your new employees are getting onboarded, whether it's in their Gmail or whether it's in their Zendesk or Service Cloud, you name it, about your business is going to be consistent throughout. So this basically allows you to centralize the definition of that particular acronym, that particular process or product or feature, and then allows you to surface that information in just about any application. Alternatively, you also have the option here. So, even with this markup, it's only going to show you when there's an exact answer. If there isn't, you have the option at any point in time to highlight a particular keyword and either right-click here or use our shortcut by typing the letter S, which is my go-to, that allows you to search the knowledge base right there. So here you can see, well, there isn't a exact spec for the dashboard, but there's a few other options here that might be helpful resources. So again, you can easily find that information right here. Have any questions come up there? Great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go into the application here to show you where all of this information.
I have another question. It's from Tom Letty asking if any other browsers are supported besides Chrome.
Great question. So currently, no. We are evaluating a few other solutions, but just seeing Microsoft's recent announcement that they're going to be moving more towards a Chromium-based browser and seeing the big push that Salesforce and a number of these other enterprise applications are making towards Chrome, we've decided in the short term not to support it. But again, that is definitely something that as we build out more functionality, we'll consider. What we do have is an Outlook integration. So again, that's really built around the enterprise use case, and that allows you to access this information in Outlook. And we also have a Lightning component that I'll be giving you a preview of in just a few moments that allows you to embed basically that search functionality directly on a record. And again, that's mostly for the enterprise use case as well. Any other questions? Great. So as I mentioned here, I just jumped here. So what I did is I clicked on this details button, and that took me into the in-app view of that particular knowledge card. So here you can see this more, wiki style view of that knowledge. You can see again who the expert is. You can see if there are any related objects. So again, when you create a spec, you have the option to relate it to a specific object if you'd like it to show up there as a shortcut. You can then create tags. We actually just released tags today. That's one of the features I've been looking the most forward to. And that's really, again, for the onboarding use case, right? Being able to tie a number of fields and objects and specs together to create essentially a series of specs, a learning packet for your team. So that you can tie, hey, here's everything that's related to the sales process. Go in and, you can read it one by one here. If I exit that little filter. So if I look at Salesforce Lightning 101, for example, I can click here and see all of the different specs that I have related to that particular process. And again, I can scroll through it this way and go through it one by one. So in terms of helping get your users up to speed, it's a really easy way to say, hey, go look at this tag, learn this in your own time, right? Because different people learn in different ways. And then if you get confused, this information will be available to you directly, in Salesforce or any other workflow. And again, you have the ability to edit this information right here as well if you'd like to, by embedding videos, images, anything of that sort. Now, again, because we're focused on the knowledge management portion of our solution, we're not going to speak too much to the data dictionary, but again, what Bryan was explaining to you earlier is the way it works with Salesforce in particular is when you first connect Spekit to Salesforce, you'll land on this page that allows you to select which objects from your standard, custom, or installed package objects that you'd like to import into the data wiki here. And we'll import whatever information we can on that particular field, such as field type and API name, and some of that information get you started out if you're an admin, and then you have the ability to go in and edit that. Now, one or two more things I want to show you right before going into the roadmap here is our dashboard. And our dashboard here, as a company, will give you some stats on how much you've documented. If you're a type A person like me or Zari, we like to see, how much value we're adding. And so how much I've actually documented. So that's what I can see here. Or again, I can see everything that my company's documented. You can also see what you've been assigned. So the way that this works is if you've been assigned as the data expert to a particular field or pick list value, you name it, it'll show up here. So if I click on new and I click on define now, I'll see that this one doesn't have a definition. So I can go in and add that definition here as a data expert and say, this is what new means. Click save. I can then copy that link and send it to someone if they need it, or I can hide it if I want to put it in draft mode before publishing it to our end users. And again, if I were to search this right now and I search new, I would see that it's updated here. So it updates everywhere, in Spekit. But the neat thing is now it'll no longer be on my dashboard because I've now filled it out. So you can see that there's only 15 left that I need to go in and document. So again, from a content creation piece, we really wanted to make it easy to manage what's been assigned to you, what might need updated, and keep track of all that there. Similarly, as you sync to Salesforce, if we detect that you've created any new fields in Salesforce, we'll pull those in so that you can make sure that you assign those if they need to be assigned. Or this is also a place where if you, create a placeholder card, they can show up here.
Mel, there's a quick question here from David Ochner. Can you tie that to your to-do tasks in Salesforce?
That's a great question.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. No, you can't right now, but since we have an integration, we're looking at ways. We have like we mentioned, a Lightning component coming out. So that's a really good suggestion. We will definitely write that down. Thank you. And then lastly, what I'll show you here of our dashboard before jumping into our roadmap is what you can see here around what your users are looking at. So I don't know if you guys caught it earlier and Brian said like, oh, that, job aid is now the most looked at in our org. Part of creating good content is giving visibility, both to the content creator and to the users, what information is helpful, what are people searching? So we have a lot more of the analytics piece coming out on our roadmap. But right here, what you can see is, what cards or what hover overs your users are looking at. So you can see, well, the opportunity, probably because I demo it so much, is our most looked at field. So the idea here is that over time, you can, be smarter about what kind of content you're building and, really improve that knowledge management as a whole.
Just a clarification there, it's what hover over or what in our Outlook integration. It's so basically just how many views. It's an aggregation of how many views there are. And right now we don't break it up by source, but that's definitely on our roadmap.
Absolutely, so that you can see what integrations are the most helpful as well. Great. So hopefully that was helpful here. So let me stop sharing for a minute here and get back to the webinar. So I believe here that I can go in and start a new presentation. Okay, so can everyone see my screen here?
I can see it.
Fantastic. So, in 2018, our big objective with, building this solution was really about how we could make the content creation piece easy. And so when you look at our roadmap over the last quarter, we created an import export functionality to Excel so that you can import or export all that metadata and knowledge to a different format. We came out with that dashboard and usage analytics. So again, you could have visibility into, what your users need help with. Then after analyzing some of that, usage analytics and getting feedback from our customers, we started building out our own training content to really help you, get started with your content creation journey. And then recently we came out with the PDF manual generator. I should have probably demoed that one, but basically allows you to take any given spec that you've documented in Salesforce, so any field, any object, any document, and generate a PDF from that. And the funny thing is for us, that felt like taking a step back from this whole idea of having automated documentation. But the reality is that for that initial onboarding or training period where your organization might have more of a classroom style training, this allows you to print out that manual. It's all the same content they're going to see directly in context, but they can go in and annotate it for their learning process, take their own notes, and really learn it again at their own speed. So we were really excited about that and have gotten great feedback both from consultants as well as from end users. And then lastly, December, what we're really focused on is tags, which we just released so that you can create, and tie all this content together to create, really easy onboarding packs for your users. And then coming out with our Outlook integration, which I won't have time to demo it today, but that allows you to copy that content directly in an email and search all the knowledge base there too. So again, our big focus was on the content creation piece. And next, what we're really excited about is on the user experience. So how can we help you really deliver that content to your users in the best format possible? How can we ensure that, immediately when they need it, your users know that there's information there and that they know, just how easily they can access it? So looking at our roadmap for Q1, the first phase, which we're super excited about with end of December coming right around the corner and early January, is going to be those Chrome enhancements. Getting feedback from Bryan on the images, being able to, pop up the video so that it's more visible to end users, being able to copy the content, if we go back into, that Gmail example, being able to copy the content of the card directly into, an email, for example, as well as being able to pin certain items for your end users. So if you think about, let's say in Bryan's use case, he created that one, new process doc. He wants everyone to know that he just created it. He'll be able to pin it to the top so that any new user that opens up Spekit will be able to see that that resource is now available. So again, really enhancing the Chrome extension experience and delivering all of that information that they need directly there. The next big piece is the Lightning component. So we're currently going through the security review process. We're super excited about that. And it'll be on the App Exchange soon. And that'll basically give you that same search functionality embedded in any record. So depending on the use case, we've heard from a number of clients that having a Lightning component would be really helpful. So we're really excited to deliver that as well. And then lastly, our new knowledge base UI. And this is the piece that, Zari and I think, and the rest of the founding team and employees are really excited about. And it's making that in-app UI more user-friendly for our employees. So as we explained earlier, the initial solution was a hybrid between a data dictionary to document your metadata. Are you speaking, Zari?
Sorry, I was saying we can't see the next slide with the new UI. We're still on the roadmap slide. Oh, we're meant to be. Okay, great. Yeah.
Here's the Lightning component. Yeah, so I'll jump into the next UI. Yeah, you're right. So let me just jump into this Lightning component. So just to show you what that looks like. So we have basically a utility bar down here that allows you to search Spekit. So if you think from any, anywhere in Salesforce, you'll be able to simply pop up Spekit here and search for any keyword, any process, anything that might be helpful. So that'll be available there. Hopefully, if a utility bar comes in for mobile, that'll also be helpful to your users that are on the go. And then our Lightning component here, again, it'll be up to you to decide what size you want it to be, but you'll be able to have certain pinned items there. So if you have specific, product sheets or processes that you want to pin there for your users based on the record, you'll be able to do that. And then going to the UI piece here, so we got feedback from our customers that from an end user perspective, the data dictionary wasn't as intuitive as they'd like it to be because they didn't understand the tabular format as much. So we're going to come out with a second version. So we're not replacing the data dictionary. That will continue to be, an option that our customers can invest in. But this knowledge base UI will really be geared around, again, that onboarding and acknowledgement use case, right? That allows them to easily go in and see it in a little bit more of a traditional knowledge management solution style. Again, to facilitate both that initial onboarding and that ongoing training piece of things.
And I think here we can answer the question from Dawn about is there more general wiki-like functionality where pages of general onboarding checklists and content can be managed in addition to integrations with apps run on Chrome. So basically, I think that's what we're trying to go towards.
That's a really good question. So, at this stage, we're kind of looking at a few different options. So one is looking at, integrations with other potential learning systems or other, if you think of Lessonly, if you look at some of these LMS solutions that have, that ability to create quizzes, that's something that we're looking at exploring, the ability to add some of that functionality, not in, necessarily the LMS format, but some of that, traditional, hey, how can I create a checklist or a to-do list for my end user on that first time experience? and creating that there. So we're in the process still evaluating that, but if you have any ideas around, what kind of functionality you think would really help you with that onboarding experience, we'd love to hear from you, because we're heavily invested in building out this second phase of the product here this spring. Were there any other questions there? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, you're on.
There's one more from David, and I can take that one. What PDF engine do you use? We actually got around it by actually outputting a page in your browser. So we put it in a printable format, and then regardless of which browser you're in, you can use the native functionality to print to PDF. So basically, we output our PDF in a printable browser format.
I can show that real quick, actually. All right, can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Great. So what you can do is you can go here and select from a number of different, fields or objects or specs, and then under bulk actions, you can click print to PDF. And then you can select to either print all the metadata or just the summary section. So when you think of the onboarding use case, it's really going to be just the definition of business process. And that'll create this document here for your team that you can go ahead and document, that you can go ahead and print out. So if you click print here, that's where you can either save to PDF or print it. And we have a little table of contents there for you to organize it all. And this was actually originally requested by our consultants, because when they go in and they work on an implementation for their customers, they wanted an easy way to take everything that they built out, everything that they've documented, and hand it over in a document as well. And this little feature, this was a brilliant little last minute add-in by our senior front-end engineer here, where to accommodate for videos, he put a QR code there so that if you're in that classroom cell training and that video comes up, you have the ability to scan that QR code and see that. So super excited.
The QR code, but I think we get the gist of the feature.
Sorry.
Well, there we are.
There we go. Sorry. I opened the pop-up. We couldn't see it. Sorry about that. So anyway, so that's how the PDF functionality works. And actually, that's all we had for on our end. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Are there any other questions? You have a little raise hand functionality here, so if you want to chime in, feel free to do that as well. Oh, and Don, you mentioned earlier, I'm seeing your question, is there any focus here outside of Salesforce? So, part of this knowledge base implementation, the Salesforce, implementation is going to be optional. So you'll be able to just use the knowledge base functionality as a standalone product if that's what you're looking for. So basically, go in, create your knowledge, and just like you would any other wiki, the connection to Salesforce and pulling in those objects and fields and pick list values is just going to be an option to enhance that documentation piece. Great. Well, it looks like we're running right up here on time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Hopefully it was helpful and learn a little bit about that. We are super excited about what's coming up in the next few months. So if you have any ideas of features that you'd like to see, please feel free to send them our way. You can contact me at melanie@spekit.co or zari@spekit.co. And we'd love to hear from you. So we'll be following up after the demo just to check in and kind of get an understanding of what some of the challenges that you would like to solve to see if we can help. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. And thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian, so much for joining.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time. All right.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Samer.